I am Jack Franks. This is Getting Better at Drupal Testing using Drupal Test Traits. I am a principal software engineer at Breakthrough Technologies. I've been there since 2014, so that's 12 years. That's pretty long for me. I've been in Drupal only since about 2011, I guess, but software development, I've been doing this literally since I was a child, so my entire life I've been doing this. Let's see who some of you are. Who in this room here, who's new to automated testing and is not quite sure if this is for you? Is this a good idea? Thank goodness. Okay, nobody has to leave now. Okay, who thinks this is a fantastic idea but has clients you need to convince? I hear this a lot, like, oh, but it's so expensive, it takes too much time. Okay, great, we'll talk about that. And then who really wants to do it but just doesn't know how to get started? Okay, by the time we're done here, everyone will know how to write a test. So we don't have to talk about this one. This is for not knowing it's a good idea. I wake up in the middle of the night all the time. Wait, I added a new field to that view. Did I pick override for this display or did I add it to all displays? I think I just broke the site, but we don't need to talk about that. Oh, and I forgot. I was going to put my kitties in here, and I forgot. They're attributed at the end, but I actually gathered pictures of my cats to put in here. So how do you convince your client to pay for automated testing? Now, this is controversial, but you do not. This is not a different part of the work. This is simply a part of the requirement. You can't, like, how do you fulfill a requirement without being able to prove that you did it? Like, prove that it works. You don't. The tests are just part of fulfilling the requirement. Like, for instance, to meet some other requirements, you don't have to tell your client, hey, we're going to be doing charts, so I'm going to need some time for Composer. No, you just install charts. You don't say, oh, well, we're going to do a deploy to stage, so I'm going to write some time in here to do, make a branch and whatever. No, it's just part of the deploy. Code reviews, config management. I don't ever put on an estimate that I need to export config. It's just like I don't put on the estimate that I need to write the test. It's just part of the work. If you need to change the a label on a form alter, that is not a 5-minute job. That is a 20-minute job because you have to do 15 minutes for the test. It is not a 5-minute job. You trick yourself into thinking it's a 5-minute job. Linting. We don't charge for linting or dev environments, and we don't charge for automated tests. Like I said, this is just now part of your workflow. This is not deceptive. This is not a bad practice. This is just something you do now, and it makes your code better. Now, what do you test? What do you test? What do you skip? What do we think? Any ideas on what we should test?
Everything.
That's a good answer, and it's tempting, but no, that takes so much time in Drupal. Testing in Drupal is hard. When I first turned to Drupal, I was doing .NET, Ruby on Rails, where all of the testing is all built in, it's all unit driven. In Drupal, testing is hard. So don't test everything, test your stuff. When core, if you get a requirement for a forgot password, yes, I would write that just so that I know that QA will never kick it back to me. But I don't do unhappy paths. I don't feel out the whole shape of request password. All I do is make sure that QA is not going to return something to me. So what you're testing is your exact user story. You're testing any custom logic, any custom entities, any custom config stuff that you wrote. You're going to test the unhappy paths around there. And then anything that you have ever been pinged for more than once, that gets a test. Because it could be something like, it just keeps getting merged out. That happens with config all the time in Drupal. So if it gets merged out more than once, something is happening there, write a test for it. Can't happen again.
What do you mean by an unhappy path?
An unhappy path is anything that is affected by the direct path through your story. So, I have a user story 2 slides ahead that I will deal with that. No, that's right now. It's next. Okay, user story. So here's a first story. Now we've gotten our BAs talking given, when, then, and our stories are tight. Sometimes when I'm talking to people, I forget that we've kind of we've addressed our requirements problem. We have good requirements on my teams, and here's a good simple example of a complete user story. Given I am logged in as a content editor, that gives me all of my prerequisites. I have to be logged into the site, and my user has to have that specific role. When I add a new article, so that's going through it, and there's no path listed in here, so it doesn't say when I go to content, add content. There's not a specific way to get there. Anytime I'm adding a new article, then the title field is named new article title. So an unhappy path there is testing things that that don't match this. So if I edit an article, what's the title? If I edit a blog, what's the title? Unhappy paths really are for more process-oriented ones than this. So it's like if when I submit my form, then it creates an article. The unhappy paths are required field validation, field type validation, stuff like that. Anything that deviates you from being able to follow all the way down. So here, again, that's what we would test. We would test that we have this, when we're adding a new article, that the title is the appropriate one. And then for this story, we would also test that updating an article doesn't change it. But then we get another story where they say, okay, we're going to add a new scenario. Actually, we do want to make it so that when you're editing an existing article, it's named update article title. So as we can see, this is now two form alters. These are very simple, but it could be that writing one of these breaks the other one. And if only there was a way that we could check that every time we deploy. But how do we do it? Well, like I said, testing in Drupal is a lot, but it is absolutely worth it. You will sleep better, your clients will be happier, QA will be happier. Actually, before I start talking about that, who doesn't have testers on their project? Anyone? Okay, so that is double duty on you. You have to do your own testing. So this means you have no one else to come in and clean up after you. You have no one else to check up on your regression tests. If you post up a build and there's a feature that you did 6 months ago and you just, oh, right, it was a conditional field, I just forgot to get into it and it's broken now. All of those are memories of the past now. But it used to be you would have 4 options for testing in Drupal. There's unit tests, which are super fast, very isolated, super atomic, and they can test things at the basest level. But the problem with Drupal is that Drupal is such an ecosystem. Everything works together in Drupal. If you do a form alter, you can't be sure that some contrib module or even another custom module isn't going to come up behind you and do some other form alter. Does anybody know how form alters are executed in priority when there's multiple ones that are being run? They're alphabetical. So if you have, your custom module starts with A and you have group afterwards and group sticks something in with group content or something, like that just happens after you. If you unit tested yours, you wouldn't even know that it was there. So in order to get a better idea of how your stuff interacts with the Drupal ecosystem, you have to mock everything. And when you're using Drupal like Drupal wants to be used, like passing entities around instead of actual like variables and values that are so atomic, again, you have to mock everything. You're testing your mocks more than you're testing what you actually are building. Kernel tests were a lot better, and I wrote quite a lot of kernel tests. This basically gives you a partial Drupal site. It installs a real database with real config, but you have to manage that config separately from your existing site. So if you want to have a kernel test that tests the sorting of some view or something, that test has to have the same version of config as the view that you have in production. So you're now maintaining multiple versions of things. Then there were functional tests. So if you wanted to get even slower, you could write functional tests, which builds a full Drupal site every time you run a test. It's so slow. It does set up real config, but it doesn't have any real data. I mean, you can make it make real data with recipes and whatever, but again, now you're installing that every time. And then for the super slowness, you can do JavaScript functional tests, which load a headful browser and are really painful to watch. But then we got Behat, and Behat was awesome. It was a behavior-driven framework, and it was amazing. It could automate browsers, test whole behaviors. It was written in, for the recording, I'm doing air quotes here, natural language. And the given when then that we started was a big part of that. We were trying to get our BAs to be able to, talk a Behat kind of a language, maybe write some of their own tests. That never happened. It's hard. Behat is not natural language. It's just programming in English. It's clunky. It doesn't really like to maintain state between steps. I wrote this whole tokenizing system that would, maintain stuff between steps, pass stuff between contexts, maintain IDs, and because these are complex applications and they have to do a whole bunch of stuff. But Behat wasn't incredibly happy with that. We pushed it so far beyond its limits that we needed something else. So now there's another option, the fifth meat. Are there any Beef and Dairy Network fans here? Oh, I didn't think so. I figured this joke would be just for me. It's my favorite podcast. It's weird and British and very dry, and nobody listens to it. So let's talk about Drupal Test Traits. This is one of my absolute favorite contrib projects. I love Drupal Test Traits. Instead of Behat, where you're writing these one step at a time, and each step can have whatever it needs in it, you're just writing PHP unit tests just live against your already installed site, just with Drupal APIs, with your real config, your real content. It doesn't have to reinstall anything. You don't mock anything. It just executes stuff against your real site. It's like a Cypress or a Playwright or one of those, but imagine how powerful it would be if Cypress or Playwright could talk to Drupal. That's what this is. This changes everything about the way that you test. Because it uses natural Drupal APIs to write data. You want to create a user, you create a user. You want to save, change its first name, user, the arrow field first name equals whatever, user save. Done, just like Drupal. It is not different. We clean up our own data when we're done. This is built in, and if you're going, custom stuff, like it handles users and terms and nodes and things really easily. But like I've got sites that do a lot of group stuff, so I had to write a group trait that does that same kind of stuff with groups. But all easy. It is just wonderful. It's really easy to install. You just do a couple of composer. Well, you can do this in one composer, but it looked better on the slide to have two. And then there is a little gotcha there. DTT does like a custom bootstrap, so use mine. It's already set up. Just copy it in, use mine. Then you don't have to worry about, I can't remember what the message is. It used to be every time I set up a project, I would run to, damn it, okay, yeah, I just forgot to copy my PHP unit. So just grab this one, the repo, there's a link at the end. Okay, well, now it's time for demos. Okay, let's look at some tests. Can you get this? Yes, you can. All right, Solution Explorer in presentation mode. So we're gonna look first at our core stuff tests. So these are our tests.
You don't see anything.
What? Oh no, it's mirroring. Okay, do I have to come out of presentation mode?
CICD.
Nope, come up, get out, stop. Okay,
Progress.
there we are. I didn't realize the PowerPoint wouldn't give me my screen back. Again, it's mirroring. I just assumed that it would, what they say about assuming. Okay. So here's our core stuff. We extend, here, let me show you my test base, just because I like to have a test base class for a number of reasons that I'll get into in a minute. For non-JavaScript DTT tests, your base class is an existing site base. So this uses Goot and does a bunch of headless browser automation to go through and run your tests. So let me go over my base. Now let me go back to the test first. I'll go over my base class in a minute. So here we're just going to do a simple login test, and this creates a user, make sure that that user exists, and then logs in. And this should execute with no errors, and it does. Now we have testing an error page. So here is something that I do in my custom base class. There, you use the normal Drupal get, and again, this is just like writing a functional test. It's all the same kind of stuff, except I have an override on Drupal get that does two things. One, it sets our BigPipe Node.js cookie so that BigPipe knows to just render everything. Sometimes it'll get you if you don't do this. BigPipe will sometimes render things in pieces, even if you are not a JavaScript client. Setting this cookie makes sure that it won't do that, and it'll render everything out right away. Then we have this commit pending transactions, and this is complicated. If you have xdebug on, it changes the order of when you tear things down, so you have to make sure that you commit all your transactions before things finish up, or xdebug will mess up how your tests run. Then we run the regular Drupal get, and now we have this allow errors. So this is the real meat of this. In addition to BigPipe, I have my Drupal get set so that if any message comes up that I'm not expecting, I get an error. So like if you upgrade PHP 8.3 to 8.4 and you get a deprecation error, boom, you'll get an error here, you get a warning, and the test will identify that you got this. Like, hey, whoa, something's wrong. And then this is how we check the error messages. And right now I only have it checking for errors, not warnings, but yeah. Okay, so same thing. We're going to create a user, log in with it. We're going to go to this page. This is a custom route. And you can see that it does add an error. So I put this in here so that one of the tests would fail. And if you look, we can run them all, and one of them does fail. This is on purpose. This wasn't a huge mistake. There they go. And now we can see that we have an element matching an error, an alert danger, which is here. So we have an uh-oh, this looks like an error. And again, that's something that we've coded in here. So if I take this out and run these again, oh, now something else failed because I had another one that was expecting the text. So as you can see, this is pretty robust. I changed one thing, and it changed the expectation of another test. So now if I'm like, oh, great, taking out this error will fix everything, and I just take it out and push it, well, no, we were supposed to have that uh-oh text on there because the BA required it, and if I took it out, we fail, I took it out. So that is the error page. Then we can test our status code. Note, you can't test a status code on a JavaScript test. You can only test status codes on a headless test. But I use this all the time, testing for 200s and 403s and whatever. We're checking for what the text contain or the page contains. Checking a page title. This is a new little treasure thing that I have in here. Steal this advanced UI test trait. I have all kinds of little treasures in here. But I'll talk about treasures in a minute. And then we have testing that this is the test that fails, because you can see that the Drupal get here does not expect an error. So again, this is our intentionally failing test. Let's look at one of these other cool things. Drupal Test Traits comes with an entity crawler, which is so cool because it means that you can test stuff without having to actually go through the app. So here we have we want to test the teaser here. So we test our teaser trimmed at 600 characters. So we're going to add a little token to the end. Go through, create our node. Now this again, it creates a live node in the system, and then since we're using create node here, it knows to mark this entity for cleanup, so when the test finishes, it'll tear itself down and all of the data that it created, it will remove. So we've set our body, and now we can get a full entity view with this, and a teaser entity view with this, and now we can check that the teaser does not contain the token because it's too long. So that's really cool. It does it for blocks too. So in addition to rendering a an entity without the site around it. You can render a block without the site around it, and it gives you a traversable DOM node element, just like if you had searched for it on the page. So you can use any of the test methods to check it and find text in it or other elements or whatever.
So the crawler isn't crawling all entities of that type. It's crawling a particular entity?
It crawls a particular entity, yes.
Okay.
I use it for checking config too. Like I said, in the don't always test core, if I put a click sort on a particular column, I don't need to check that Views knows how to do a click sort. I know Views knows how to do a click sort. All I need to do is make sure that the setting is there so that I can test that it doesn't get merged out in a future merge or build. So, like, I don't have a view thing in here, but here we have user settings. It is set so that users can't register. If that changes, this test will fail. If I change the theme, so we're checking that our default theme is olive arrow. Let's go back. Actually, let's put my error back. So now everything should pass. Well, actually, everything should pass except that one thing. But now let's go and change it to Claro and run the test again and see what happens. Oh, we got a couple of failures. So one failure that, again, we expected because we did change it. We did not update the test. There's our failure that we expected here because of the error message. So that one's still good. But we can see, oh, something else failed here. We don't have a block placement on this page. And if we come back, we can see that, yeah, that's true. My little weather blocks are not on here. If we switch back to olive arrow, now we can see my little weather blocks. So this is what I coded up for that block crawler. Here's 60614 where we are, where it is 66.3 degrees. And then I missed my cats tremendously, so I just wanted to see what the weather was at home, where it's 60 degrees. And whoops, yeah, and we have tests for that. So we can, again, test the, where is crawler? Click the wrong guy. So it will, that's the powered by. So this one reads the powered by Drupal and tests that, but here we go, weather block service. So we do the same thing here. We do the block crawler, we get our plugin ID, and then we can pass it whatever parameters we want, and it renders it, and we can test it. So here we're just testing that we get the number of Fahrenheit degrees, and that it has this class that we're expecting. We test it for a different zip code as well, same basic thing. We test that they're both placed in the sidebar. So here I've got the Chicago block, and then all the stuff that I want to test with it, like the fact that it's there, the fact that it's called this, the fact that it has the temperatures in it. Now, again, I know every time I do a build, those blocks work. Same thing, whoops, with the service that powers them. This does fail every so often because the service doesn't respond, but that happens. It's a full behavior integration test. So as you can see, I'm not mocking it. I'm not testing. I can mock it if I'm using, if this is an AI thing or something that uses tokens or something like that. I would put a different backend behind that service so as not to consume resources with a test. But this is not that. This is a free service that gives you the weather, so I have it testing live. And it tests all of the the conditions that I want out of that service. So now I'm guaranteed that this is going to pass as long as the service doesn't change what they return. And if they do, immediately my test will fail. We can test views too. Here we create a bunch of nodes. Then we can look at this testable view. We can test that that it's sorted, that these come back in order. So for instance, we're going A, B, C, but it will check to make sure that we're going C, A, B, or C, B, A, but we check to make sure that they're A, B, C when it's in the view. So we can pull those out and test sorting. I thought I had one where I do test that config value. So again, I don't need to test that it has that the sort works because views has its own tests. I just need to make sure that my sort is there so that my story won't get kicked back to me as a failure. We have Node content. Oh, this is another great one that I use all the time. So again, this does run against your existing site, which means if you have test content in here, if you have a recipe, I actually got into a lot of this before recipes and default content worked super well. So all of my major project, all of its default data is based on migrations. So, but yeah, you migrate everything, and now it's like, well, I want to test the empty behavior of some view, but there's test data in here that doesn't expire for another 3 weeks. So what do I do? Well, I have this this in here, this function unpublish nodes of bundle. So you can specify here, like all the articles that exist, unpublish all of them. So now you start out with a blank unpublished state, and then at the end, when the test is finished, it tears itself down and republishes all of the nodes that it unpublished. So again, I can test anything and everything. I can control all of the data and get the site in exactly the state I want to do any kind of testing, and then it sets itself back when it's done. So here we have some paging where this tests that it creates 3 nodes, but the view is 2 per page. So here we should have the pager, but then we unpublish, and when we create 1 then and come back, we don't have the pager because there's only 1 article. Let's see, that might be it for the tests. Let's go through the. I'm going to deal with this in that little treasure set. Oh, which is next? Okay, good. Okay, so this advanced UI test trait. Let me go back and see what my time is. Oh, so much time. Okay. So I've got all kinds of stuff in here where if you have a table full of rows and buttons and controls and stuff, here's a super way just to get to one particular one. Zap. You can press a button in a particular table row. Here's clicking something in a table row, like a link or something. Here is, like I said, a lot of these deal with tables. We have so many tables. So pulling stuff out so that we can test these, testing H1 titles. Field contains, there's something in here that I had to do that was different. I think this was a name. I had to do something with a named field that the regular one didn't give me. Here's for field not containing, and again, I think this one, I don't remember why I had to override that one. We can assert that controls are enabled. We can get way more sophisticated with the click logic. So it uses a lot of selectors and XPaths and CSSs and whatever, but not all of the methods in the WebDriver session are available over all of the the finds. So this is just a different way to get to the find and click it. Shortcut to fill in everything with a particular selector. It's finding all link instances of a particular exact link. Again, to see if something contains a certain number of times in a page. I have all kinds of stuff that I test for here. Elements visible, elements not visible. Line clamp, that's a good one. This is one that I just had to write 3 times for different projects and realized that I should save it. We have dealing with radio buttons and select boxes in interesting ways. Like again, I like to clamp my tests and test for the shape around them. So if it's add a new item to a select option, I'm checking the entirety of that select to make sure no other new items go in there that I'm not expecting. So again, that's why we're checking select options exact. Ajax tests, the JavaScript tests can be a pain in the butt. The Chromium and WebDriver integration is way less sophisticated than I would like. Sessions get hung up all the time. I mean, mine is kind of deeper than a lot of people go. My big major apps now have a lot of H5P stuff. So we have tests that go in and log in as learners and then set up a course registration and walk through all the modules and walk through all the activities and take them and test them and there's iframes involved. So again, the stuff that I'm doing is way in the weeds here, but the least fragile part of it is the JavaScript test. So I've had a lot of little Ajax helpers in here. WYSIWYG stuff for CK Editor, which is really fun. A lot of CK Editor. we have an active path in left nav, so you can see that you can check in particular. Again, you can use whatever selectors you want to make sure all your stuff is here, and then check text or classes are inside them. Finding links. Some of these exist now, and they didn't before. Like finding a link by href now exists in the core DTT. This meta refresh is a good one too. This lets you test batches, so you can go through the app, set up your batch, and then it takes you to the the progress bar screen. The meta refresh is what will read that and know when it's done, so as to move you to the the next one, the finished page, or wherever you're going. Config trait, I already showed this one. This just gets those values out of config. Debug trait, this is awesome. Pause for user input. Watch this. Let's go to this test error page. Oh no, let's do the testable view. I want to show you the articles. So let's go this pause. Okay, so we're going to run that one test, and then I put that pause for user input in there. So zap, there it is. The test will not continue until I hit enter, and then it finishes up. And but now let's run that again. Now if we go to content, here's those 3 articles. And then the test runs. Boom, they're gone. So here we can. This is how I go in and test the. If a test fails, this is how I like to go in and do my testing.
So you use that during test development, not.
Do not commit
CI.
with a pause going on, because your CI job will just pause, and they charge you by minutes. So don't do that. I actually have a rule. I have a check-in rule where it checks for that, so I can't do that. Yes, good point. Do not commit with a pause for user input in there. So let's see, where are we now? Okay, yeah, treasures, those are good. Okay, yeah, take all these things out of the repo, please. These things are just lifesavers for me. Those Drupal gets and all of the error trapping and error checking. Again, that config. I know that I've said this, but I just can't stress it enough. It's in that mindset of what to test and what not to test. Test the thing that's going to prove that your feature doesn't work. So maybe that's clicking on the button. Maybe it's just checking the result of something. Think it through. Like everyone is getting Claudified now, and Claude can actually write decent tests once you tell it what you want. Now, again, in my particular case, this application is 8 years old and has thousands and thousands of test methods. So Claude had a really good, good sample to copy from. It's like, oh yeah, Jack, I know how you write tests. I'll write one just like you, and it does. But on a new project, it doesn't know that. So that's why I like to give it some context and some things to start with. Like, here, these are your toys. Play with these. Write me a test like this. But again, before you have the robot do that, I just want you all to know what you should be looking at, what you should accept and what you should reject. So yeah, tell it about these. That's the summary. That's not where I thought I was. Okay, so this is how you get Drupal test traits. The next one, I have an article that was the genesis of all of this, as to why this is so important, and how to kind of, again, it's not get client buy-in. It's adjusting your work expectations so that this is part of what the client expects. Then this is where you can get all of these, and then there's contrib day. But before we get into the contrib day stuff, I want to take questions and make this a little more interactive. We've got about 10 minutes worth of live testing and questions and anything that we want to do. And I know every time I ever talk about this, everyone has a million of them. So I know that I'm going to face a quiet room right here. Awesome. Okay, yeah.
So could you say a little more how you integrate that into your CI?
Oh yeah, that's right. I skipped it. I didn't mean to. I did. I had this whole slide. Yes, I will. Thank you. Okay, I thought I was short, and I didn't think I should have been. Okay, so here is my GitHub workflows ci.yaml job. Now,
No, you didn't.
this is my ci.yaml file. Now, I have both push and pull request in here. I don't necessarily recommend having it this way. Again, I'm talking about my major kind of projects here, which are built on this massive code base, which has something like 1,900 test methods, got like 120,000 assertions. It's massive. You cannot run these locally. So rather than having to open a pull request and set it as draft and whatever, just to run a full test run and make sure I didn't break it, I have that project set on push. So every time you push it up, it does a full test run. The real best practice is probably just to have it on pull request. This is a special case. My project is too big. So you have on pull request, which means every time you push up and open a pull request, GitHub will run your jobs. So I have two in here. One runs on Ubuntu, does a checkout, downloads and sets up ddev, starts it, runs our ddev install command, which is here. Standard Drupal install stuff. It does a composer install. It does a site install. Then there's an install with existing config doesn't work here because like shortcuts are turned on and there's entities in there and whatever. It's because I started with standard. So instead of that, I just set the system GUID to whatever it is in my system site, and then I delete the shortcuts and re-import. So it does that, and then runs all the unit tests except for the intentionally failing one, because then it would, my run wouldn't be green, and I have one in here that's supposed to fail. So I have that one excluded. Then I also run quality statistics, analytics on mine. So again, it sets up ddev, runs composer, and then does a CS and a PHP stance. So again, by the time I push up, all of this should be green. And, in fact, it is. Whoa, it's not. What failed? Oh yeah, see, look at that. The weather service didn't come back. Let's run it again. So let's go to a good one. And we can see that I got good results on PHP CS, good results on PHP stand. Oops.
Do you need to pay to run these actions on GitHub?
I think there is a free level, but I think that I pay.
Okay.
GitLab, it has an option to host your own runner. GitLab also lets you host your own runner. And GitLab works the same way as this. I did not set up the YAML file on the GitLab project, so I don't actually know if they're the same. Does anyone know? Are they the same? I think they're the same. But this should work on GitLab too.
Same concept.
Yeah. Let's see if this guy came back yet. Actions.
I'm running Drupal Test Traits locally on projects.
Excellent.
Have you run into situations where your tests have passed on your local dev environment but have failed in CI?
Very rarely. It happens with JavaScript tests a little more than I like to admit. I have to rerun JavaScript tests more than I like. But for a non-JS test, no, I don't ever have that.
Because I'm wondering if this is just for a personal project, but just like, is there any benefit to running the tests on an environment that is closer to production?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. We so that Ubuntu is not far off the AL2, I can't remember. We use my projects are all AWS hosted, and whatever the Linux version that we host, that's why we picked that Ubuntu latest runner.
And that's different than your local ddev?
Well, what it runs on is, but the thing is, it runs inside the container. So when it's running on the runner should be exactly what I'm running locally, because again, it sets up the container and installs itself and runs the test on that. And sometimes that can take a hugely long time, and sometimes it doesn't. That's not me, is it? It is. Actually, I remember Mike and I had a talk about this a couple of years ago about what's the better approach. At the time, my GitHub Actions would do a full setup, and as opposed to just restoring from a database and doing a deploy or whatever, and that just got to take. It added 12 minutes onto the run. It was just too slow. So I did end up going back to a database backup and deploy. But I also have, in that job, I also have a full, it doesn't run the test, but it does the full install for all of the forks. I think I tangented a little bit off of your original question. So what you're running on the runner, as long as you're running it in vdev, should be exactly the same. Still have a couple of minutes left. Anybody else?
So getting back to what I was asking about.
Oh, yes.
How it integrates with CI. Could you scroll up a little bit?
Sure.
So you're doing a site install. So you've got a fresh Drupal install running in CI. And
Yes.
you're testing it against that.
Correct.
If you wanted actual content, you could also do a recipe at this point.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I would put it in my install because this is what I would use. Like when I'm onboarding a new dev, this is how you do it. You pull it down, ddev install, whoop, it sets your whole site up. So if I was doing a recipe, it would be here. Again, my other project with all the migrates and everything like that, that's in here.
Okay. And you're doing this on every pull request, so it must be relatively fast, even with your thousands of tests?
I have it set so that each job shouldn't take more than 35 minutes. And I have something like 38 jobs.
Okay.
But again, this is an 8-year project of a huge application. It's it's got 4 different install types and whatever. This is a massive project.
So if you wanted to run it just on pushes to the develop branch rather than every pull request, then you could set it up that way in your.
You can. I have it.
Yeah,
There we go. Yeah, I have this one. This one has push and pull request, and they're both blank, so it's any push, any pull request. But you can. There's parameters you can push here, like it was push any branch that matches your regex or whatever, and it'll only run it on that. Like I said, I have it just pushing up on everything. And then it will, so as you can see, it's running through everything. So it does the composer install, it does the site install, now it's doing the config import. And it passed this time, so the weather service was available, which it wasn't before. But yeah, you can see the log, it does all the config, and that's all this one does. It does, like my other guy, I have a ddev command called init from db, which pulls down the database, sets up the correct file, because again, this application can install into like 5 different types of app. So it pulls down the right one, pulls down the right config splits, does the database import, does all the config imports and migration imports, and now it's done. And then the tests run against that.
So something like that, you're initializing from an actual database, you have to worry about giving your CI access to an actual database.
I commit it. So I have so this is like, again, using that other project as an example, this sprint we're on version 4.1.6. So I have the database where we finished 4.1.5. So this is a base 4.1.6. Like no 4.1.6 has been applied to this database yet. That is what the CI loads up, restores, and then deploys all on top of that. So we test all of our config, all of our deploy hooks, all of our install hooks, all of the the module installs and uninstalls, all that kind of stuff. It can test all of that during CI because it's starting with something. I also have a run, like I said, that tests from a fresh install, but it just takes so long. But for safety, I do have one. I see you're thinking, I can talk about this stuff for a really long time. Yeah.
For the test you have here that's a little flaky with the weather.
Yeah.
Since it's phpunit in Drupal Test Trait, in the test, could you mock the endpoint
For sure. Yes.
Instead of relying on the live?
You can, and again, if it goes to a service that costs money, that's what I always do that. Like my I've got another one that does geocoding. So I've got a fake geocoder that like takes specific, like one takes a city string that it recognizes, one takes a zip code, and they return only things for that. So yeah, I do that because I'm testing my service assuming that theirs works.
Yeah, you're testing the consumption of their data, so
Right.
you don't necessarily want to rely on if they're up or not, or they respond quick enough.
Exactly. But yeah, this is an example where I wanted you to see stuff, and it's a free service, so I just didn't mock it. But you totally could, yeah. I do a whole bunch of tricks with that, like if you've got, if you're testing, like I actually use this for unit tests so that I don't have to mock stuff, where I'll just load up a service and just call it and have expected and actual. Wait, where was I going with that? Yeah, well, so like I said, I'll use it for just unit testing services, but just against the full site. Oh, well, I'm over. That was awesome. I'll take questions until someone comes into the room, or again, please let me pull this back up so you can all copy this down. There we go. Get that. Get my repo. It's got so many cool treasures in it. I use these things literally all the time. Okay, then there is Contrib Day. That is Thursday from 10 to 4. You don't have to know, we're all developers in here, but yeah, I'll see you there. Then there's coffee. Nora already explained how this works. I don't have beans, but that's how it works. And then thank you. And then again, I'm so sad that I didn't put pictures of my own cats in there. But here's the credits for the ones that were real. So because this is going up on YouTube. Okay. Well, thank you, everybody.